Welcome back to the deep dive. We are doing something a little different today. Usually we're digging into, history or tech or productivity hacks. But today we're looking at what is essentially a crisis management case study. It just happens to be set in a galaxy far, far away.
We are cracking open Star Wars, The New Jedi Order, Destiny's Way by Jon Williams.
And I'm really glad we're tackling this one.
Me too, because this is not your standard space opera romp. Not at all. This is a study in what happens when a superpower, a galactic government, just collapses.
Yeah.
We're looking at a government that's failing, a military in absolute tatters, and a leadership vacuum that is just being filled by panic and fear.
It's a textbook example of how to, or maybe how not to handle an existential threat.
For sure.
The context here is just brutal. I mean, if you're only familiar with the movies, you think of the New Republic, the government, Han, Luke, and Leia built as the winners.
Right. They blew up the Death Star. They had the Ewok party, credits roll. Everyone lives happily ever after.
Exactly. But in this book, they are losing. And I don't mean having a bad week losing. I mean, they are facing strategic, total annihilation.
We really have to set the stage here because the atmosphere of this book is... it's suffocating. The enemy they're fighting, the Yuuzhan Vong, they are nothing like the Empire.
Not even close.
The Empire, for all its faults, wanted to rule you. The Yuuzhan Vong, they want to fundamentally rewrite your biological reality. They're invaders from outside the galaxy.
And they use biotechnology for everything, right? Their ships are alive. Their weapons are alive.
Everything's organic. And they view machines, droids, hyperdrives, even a simple blaster as a complete abomination. It's a heresy to them.
So it's a religious war.
It's a holy war. And by the time we open the first page of Destiny's Way, the absolute worst-case scenario has already happened. Coruscant has fallen.
And it's hard to wrap your head around what that means. It's not just a city.
No. Imagine if, Washington, D.C. and London and Beijing and Tokyo were all the same city, and that city just got wiped off the map.
It's the seat of government, the economic hub, the cultural center of the entire galaxy.
And it's gone. It's being Vong-formed. They're literally terraforming it into a jungle. The government is scattered. The Jedi are being hunted specifically by name. The military is just broken.
It is a total lights-out scenario. The rulebook hasn't just been thrown out. It has been completely incinerated.
Exactly.
And our mission for this deep dive is to really look at how the heroes, the big three, Han, Leia, and Luke, are forced to adapt because the old tricks just aren't working anymore.
Blasters and bravado are not enough to win this war.
Not this time.
And that is the core theme we're going to pull on today, adaptation versus extinction. And we've got two main parallel narratives to follow.
Right.
On one side, you have Han and Leia on this diplomatic mission that seems absolutely insane on paper.
They're trying to ally with the Empire.
With what's left of it, yeah. The Imperial remnant. And on the other side, you have Luke Skywalker trying to navigate this political shark tank where the senators basically want to blame the Jedi for the apocalypse.
Okay, so let's start with Han and Leia. They're on the Millennium Falcon. But this is not the fun, adventurous Falcon we remember from the original trilogy.
No, the atmosphere on that ship it's heavy.
It's so heavy.
It's a flying house of mourning. And to really understand the character dynamics, we have to talk about the losses they've just endured.
Right. Chewbacca's dead. He died earlier in the war, saving Han's son, Anakin.
And then more recently, Anakin Solo himself. Han and Leia's youngest son was killed in action. A hero's death, but he's gone.
And their other son, Jacen, is missing. He was left behind when Coruscant fell. Most people, Han included, assume he's dead.
So you have these two parents trapped in this metal ship, flying through hostile space, carrying not just the weight of a failing galaxy, but the crushing grief of losing their children.
The book opens with this incredibly intimate, quiet moment. Leia's in the cockpit. She's not piloting. She's just staring out at the stars.
She's reaching out with her feelings, with the Force, straining her senses against, the emptiness of space.
She's looking for a ghost.
She is. She's looking for Jacen. And here's where it gets really fascinating. She feels something.
It's not just a vague feeling, is it?
No, it's specific.
Yeah.
The book describes it as a specific touch in the Force, a signature. She knows, with every fiber of her being, that it's Jacen.
And she tells Han, she says, he's alive. I felt him.
Right.
Now, I want to pause here and really look at Han Solo's reaction, because this is Han Solo.
The ultimate skeptic.
The hokey religions and ancient weapons are no match for a good blaster guy. He believes what he can see, what he can touch, what he can shoot.
And all logic, all evidence dictates that his son is dead.
But what does he do?
He agrees with her. Instantly. He just says, yes, of course, I believe you.
That moment it absolutely floored me. It felt like such a monumental shift from the Han we met in A New Hope.
It is, but the text adds this layer that makes it even more heartbreaking. The narration implies that Han doesn't really believe it. Not rationally.
Not in his gut.
No. His experience, his cynicism, everything he's ever known tells him the kid is gone. But he looks at Leia, and he sees she is hanging on by a single thread.
And he realizes that his job right now isn't to be the realist.
Exactly. It's not about being right. His job is to be her anchor. He chooses, consciously, to validate her reality because he knows she needs that hope to just keep breathing.
It's the evolution of their partnership. They've gone from, witty bickering to this profound nonverbal support system.
He actively suppresses his own grief and his own doubt just to hold her up. It's an incredible character moment.
But of course, they can't just have a quiet moment of connection.
No, because they are not alone on the Fallon.
Which is where this theme of unlikely alliances just kicks in hard.
Right. They are on a diplomatic mission to the Empire, the remnant of the old Empire, the people who blew up Alderaan, the people Leia has spent her entire life fighting.
The New Republic is so desperate, they're literally begging their oldest enemies for help against the Yuuzhan Vong.
And to make this whole awkward situation worse, they have to give a ride to an Imperial officer.
Commander Vanna Dorja.
She is a piece of work.
She is. The book describes her as having this bland, pleasant diplomat's face, but she's as sharp as a razor.
And she was a spy. She was on Coruscant during the invasion, feeding intelligence back to the remnant.
So now she's hitching a ride on the Millennium Falcon. The tension is just, you can feel it coming off the page.
Oh, yeah. And there's this dinner scene that just perfectly encapsulates all the friction.
With C-3PO.
Of course. You have the 3PO who is obsessed with protocol, and he's having a meltdown about the feeding arrangement.
Right, who gets precedence. You have a princess and former chief of state, a retired New Republic general, and an active Imperial commander.
Who sits where? Who gets served first? It's a diplomatic nightmare for a protocol droid.
And Han is just having none of it.
Not a bit. 3PO suggesting Han should sit in a position of honor, or maybe the guest should, and Han just wordlessly grabs his plate of food.
And moves to the far end of the table. He just says, I like it fine where I am.
He physically puts as much distance as he can between himself and that Imperial uniform. He hates that she's there. He hates that they need her. He hates the whole situation.
It's kind of funny, but it's also just so telling. Han hates the Empire with every fiber of his being, but he has to sit there and eat nutrient paste with this woman because the entire galaxy is falling apart.
And Dorja doesn't help things. She starts poking at them, prodding.
She does. She plays this what-if game. She says, essentially, that if the Emperor were still in charge, none of this would be happening.
Her argument is that the New Republic is weak because it's a democracy. It negotiated when it should have fought, it hesitated, it debated.
While the Vong were just conquering world after world.
Right, and she claims the Empire would have just used overwhelming force and crushed the Yuuzhan Vong on day one.
Which is a very common argument in favor of authoritarianism, isn't it? That idea that dictatorships are more efficient in a crisis. The whole Mussolini made the trains run on time kind of thing.
Exactly. And it's an argument that might sound really seductive to people who are, watching their worlds burn. We need a strong hand at the tiller.
But then Han Solo drops one of the greatest and funniest rebuttals in all of Star Wars literature.
Oh, it's so good. He basically laughs in her face. He says, that's not what the Empire would have done.
I have the quote right here. It's worth reading.
Please do.
Okay, so Han says, what the Empire would have done was build a super colossal Yuuzhan Vong killing battle machine. They would have called it the Nova Colossus or the Galaxy Destructor or the Nostril of Palpatine or something equally grandiose.
The Nostril of Palpatine. That line always gets me.
It's pure Han. But he continues. He says they would have spent billions of credits, hired thousands of contractors, and in the end, it just wouldn't work.
He says they'd forget to bolt down a metal plate over an access hatch leading to the main reactors. And a hotshot enemy pilot would drop a bomb down there and blow the whole thing up.
It's hilarious, but it is also such a brilliant bit of political analysis from Han Solo, of all people.
It is. He's deconstructing the Imperial myth. The idea that the Empire was efficient. It wasn't. It was bloated. It was obsessed with terror weapons, Death Stars, Sun Crushers, these giant expensive projects, instead of practical, flexible warfare.
He's pointing out that totalitarian regimes often fail because they build these incredibly brittle systems. They build giant targets that have thermal exhaust ports.
It's the difference between being big and being adaptable. The Vong are organic, they're fluid, they're adaptable. A Death Star is just a big, fat, predictable target to them.
So Han is arguing that the messy, chaotic flexibility of the Republic, or at least the old rebel mindset, is actually a survival trait.
Precisely. And just as he's having this, mic drop moment, proving his point about the need for adaptability.
The ship shudders, and they get yanked violently out of hyperspace.
Talk about cosmic timing.
Yeah.
The universe basically says, okay, wise guy, let's see you adapt to this.
And it's the Yuuzhan Vong, which leads us right into our second segment, the Battle of the Hydian Way. And this isn't just an action scene, it's a physics problem.
It really is.
Yeah.
Because the Vong don't use technology like tractor beams. They use something called a Dove Basel.
Right? Can you break that down for us?
Yeah, so a Dove Basel is a bioengineered creature. Think of it as an organic gravity generator. It can do three main things.
Okay.
It can act as an engine by creating a little gravity well in front of the ship and pulling it forward through space-time. It can act as a shield by creating a mini black hole that just swallows incoming laser blasts.
Which is terrifying.
And third, it can act as an interdiction field, which is what's happening here. It projects a gravity signature that mimics a planet, and it pulls ships out of hyperspace.
So the Falcon gets pulled out by what is essentially a living gravity mine. And waiting for them are coral stippers.
The Vong fighters, they're literally grown from coral. They're like living rock ships that shoot molten plasma. It's all incredibly gnarly.
And this is where we see Han Solo's tactical genius really shine. It's not about shooting first anymore. It's about flying smarter.
He immediately recognizes they're trapped. He can't outrun them, not right away, because of that gravity well. So what does he do? He plays the fat freighter.
The fat freighter! I love that description. He pretends to be a terrible pilot.
He flies slowishly. He lets the ship drift. He even sends out these nervous, panicky comm messages on open channels that he knows they're monitoring.
So he wants the Vong to think, oh, this is just some terrified merchant with a heavy cargo load.
Exactly. He's lulling them into a false sense of security. He wants them to get sloppy, to not form a proper attack pattern because they think he's an easy kill.
He's hustling them. It's classic Han. But then he does something absolutely crazy. He turns and flies directly at the gravity mine.
This is where the physics problem comes in. He's using the Dove Basel, the very thing that's trying to trap him, as a form of cover.
Now, how does that work?
Well, he dives right into its gravity well. The intense gravity distorts their sensors. It literally bends light and energy signatures around it. It makes the Falcon's precise position incredibly hard to pinpoint.
He's using the environmental hazard as a shield.
He is, but he still has to shoot them down. And that's a problem because of those Vong shield, those mini black holes that just eat laser fire.
Right. How do you hit a ship that can literally eat your bullets?
And this brings us to the real emotional core of the battle. Han uses a very specific firing pattern. He sets the quad lasers to fire 3 shots on slightly diverging paths.
The Anakin Solo maneuver.
Yes, the text explicitly calls it that. It was a tactic invented by their son, Anakin, before he was killed.
Wow.
Anakin figured out that if you fire diverging shots, the Dove Basel's gravity shield can't grab all of them at once. It has to prioritize, so it snags 1 or 2 of the laser bolts.
The third one curves around the edge of the gravity well and smacks right into the ship's hull.
It's an incredibly bittersweet detail, isn't it? Han is in the middle of a life-or-death fight, and to survive, he has to use a technique created by his dead son.
It's like Anakin is still there in the cockpit with him, in a way, saving his life one last time.
It really hammers home that theme of legacy and loss. The war has taken so much from them, but what the lost ones left behind, their knowledge, their tactics, is literally what's keeping the survivors alive.
And we have to talk about who is actually pulling the trigger here. Han is flying, Leia is on one gun.
And Vana Dorja, the Imperial spy, is on the other one.
And she's good.
She's really good. There's a moment where Leia is shouting orders over the comm, telling her, "Don't readjust your aim, there's a reason for the pattern."
And Dorja just calmly replies, "I presume so," and just keeps blasting coral skippers out of the sky.
It's a perfect symbol for the larger political point of the story. In that gun turret, it doesn't matter that Dorja serves the Imperial remnant and Leia is a founder of the New Republic.
If they don't work together, the Vong kill them both. Survival makes for very strange bedfellows.
For sure. So Han is pulling these insane maneuvers, slingshotting around the gravity well, braking hard, then accelerating to throw off the Vong's communication lag. He wipes out nearly an entire squadron.
But then 24 more ships drop out of hyperspace.
And for a second, Han just thinks that's it. It's over. He's a great pilot, but he's not take on 30 ships alone. Great.
But it's not the Vong.
It's the cavalry.
Right.
And it is a very, very weird cavalry.
Yeah, it is. Which brings us to segment 3, the geopolitics of the unknown regions. So these new ships show up, and they look wrong. They're not Vong, but they're not Republic either.
They're described as having the spherical ball cockpit of an Imperial TIE fighter, but attached to these weird, sharp, claw-like wings.
Clawcraft.
That's right. These are Chiss hybrids. The Chiss ascendancy is this mysterious, isolationist power out in the unknown regions, most famously associated with Grand Admiral Thrawn.
So these ships are a technological fusion of Imperial TIE design and native Chiss engineering.
And leading them is a pilot named Colonel Jagged Fell.
Jag Fell. Now, his name is important. He's the son of Baron Soontir Fell,
Who was the Empire's greatest starfighter, ace, second only to Vader, maybe, who defected to the Chiss years and years ago.
So Jag is this product of two warrior cultures, Imperial discipline and Chiss precision.
And he's, well, it's a bit of a character.
He's very stiff, isn't he? Very formal.
Incredibly disciplined. He comes aboard the Falcon and refuses to eat dinner because his own pilots are still hungry, and he hasn't secured rations for them yet. He's all, yes sir, no sir, duty first.
But he has a history with the Solos, specifically with their daughter, Jaina Solo.
Right. They were wingmates in the same squadron. And the book definitely hints at a bit of a spark there.
A complicated antagonistic relationship, I think is the phrase used.
Sound familiar? Just like Han and Leia back in the day. But the really interesting thing about Jag is what happens next. He comes aboard for dinner after they've cleaned up the last of the Vong.
And the conversation shifts right back to that debate Dorja started early.
Exactly. Should the Empire join the Yuuzhan Vong? Or at least stay out of the fight and let them destroy the New Republic?
Because Dorja was making the case for a kind of cold, pragmatic approach, let your enemies destroy each other. But Jag Fell offers a completely different strategic analysis.
He explains, very logically, why an alliance between the Empire and the Vong is not just a bad idea, it's impossible.
This is such a crucial bit of world building.
It is. Jag argues that, sure, in the short term, the Empire could grab a bunch of territory while the Republic is distracted and bleeding.
That makes sense from a purely opportunistic standpoint.
But the long term,
Yeah.
the long term is a disaster because the two cultures are fundamentally incompatible.
It comes back to the technology thing.
It all comes back to the technology. Think about the Empire. What is it? Fundamentally, it's Star Destroyers. It's TIE fighters. It's heavy industry. It's the Death Star. The Empire defines itself by its technological supremacy.
That is its cultural identity, power through technology.
And the Yuuzhan Vong religion demands the utter destruction of all technology. They see it as a blasphemy against their gods.
So Jag's point is that if the Empire wins alongside the Vong, they eventually have to become the Vong to survive in that new galaxy.
Precisely. They would have to give up the very thing that makes them the Empire. They would have to destroy their own identity to appease their new allies.
That is such a smart take. It moves the conversation beyond just good versus evil or democracy versus tyranny. It's about fundamental, irreconcilable cultural identities.
You cannot form a lasting alliance with someone who believes your very existence is a sin that needs to be purged.
And what's Venna Dorja's reaction to all this?
She's quiet. She's listening intently. She's a spy, remember. She's processing this new information.
She realizes Jag Fell just handed her the strategic logic she needs to take back to her superiors in the Imperial Remnant.
And because of that, Jag Fell, by explaining this simple, cold logic, might have just saved the New Republic from fighting a devastating two-front war.
He convinced the Empire that neutrality, or even eventually helping the Republic, is in their own selfish best interest.
Which is almost always more effective than appealing to someone's morality. You can't shame the Empire into being good, but you can convince them that siding with the Vong is unprofitable and, ultimately, suicidal.
So we leave Han and Leia as they head deeper into Imperial space, but now they have this new logical weapon in their arsenal.
A new hope, you could say.
Right. But now we have to jump across the galaxy. We're going to Mon Calamari.
The new provisional capital of the New Republic.
And it sounds like absolute chaos.
Total chaos. Coruscant is gone. So the Senate is meeting in these massive floating cities on a water world. It's humid, it's overcrowded with refugees from 100 fallen worlds, and there's a massive power vacuum at the very top.
Because Borsk Felia, the old chief of state, died on Coruscant. He went out with a bang, literally, but he didn't leave a designated successor.
So nobody is really in charge. There was this one senator in Poe who tried to sort of declare himself the leader, but the rest of the Senate basically just ignored him.
So now they're trying to hold an election for a new leader while the galaxy is actively burning down around them.
And into this political chaos steps Luke Skywalker.
He's there to represent the Jedi, but he is immediately running into a brick wall named Senator Fear Rodan.
Rodan is a fascinating character because he's the antagonist of this plotline, but he's not a villain in the, traditional sense. He's not secretly working for the Vong or anything.
He's just a politician.
He's a very ambitious politician running for chief of state, and his platform is simple. The Jedi are a problem, and I'm the one who can solve it.
We get this transcript of their meeting in the source material, and the tension is just palpable. Luke is trying to be diplomatic, to find common ground, but Rodan just hammers him.
Rodan makes three main arguments against the Jedi. The first one is a lack of oversight. He basically calls them amateurs.
He says, we have police, we have judges, we have diplomats, we have soldiers. Why do we need this group of space wizards who answer to no one interfering in all of those departments?
Ouch. And, if you're being honest, he kind of has a point.
He does. If I were a normal citizen in that galaxy, I think I'd be a little worried about a guy with a laser sword and mind powers who doesn't report to any elected official.
It's a legitimate concern. That's what makes the conflict so interesting. Rodan points out that there's no office of the protectors in the New Republic Constitution. The Jedi are, legally speaking, vigilantes.
They have no actual authority to do half the things they do.
None. And then Rodan plays his trump card. The Vader card.
Oh, that's a low blow.
It's the ultimate weapon in any Star Wars political debate. Luke starts talking about how the Jedi were the guardians of the old Republic trying to invoke this, noble history.
And Rodan just cuts him off at the knees.
He says, that proved unfortunate when Darth Vader turned up, didn't it?
Which is basically saying, your dad was a genocidal space Nazi, so maybe we shouldn't trust your little cult with unlimited power?
It's brutal, but it's effective politics. Rodan is channeling the deep-seated fear of the common citizen. The Jedi are powerful, they're secretive, and they've proven they can be incredibly dangerous.
So what's Rodan's solution?
His solution is that if the Jedi want to fight in this war, they should enlist, they should join the military, get a rank, follow the chain of command, and be accountable to the Senate.
This is a fundamental clash of worldviews, isn't it? It's mysticism versus bureaucracy.
Completely. Luke sees the Jedi as servants of a higher power, the Force. Rodan sees them as unauthorized, unaccountable weapon systems that need to be brought under government control.
And Luke is really struggling here. He realizes that Rodan isn't just being difficult, he's laying a political trap. If Rodan becomes chief of state, he will either leash the Jedi or outlaw them entirely.
And the Jedi can't save the galaxy if they're all tied up in bureaucratic red tape, or, worse, in prison.
Which brings us to our fifth segment, maneuvering in the shadows. Luke goes back to his apartment, dejected, and we get this lovely, quiet scene with Mara Jade.
It's such a great contrast. We've just had this high-stakes, high-tension political meeting, and now we see the marriage, we see their private life.
And Mara is teasing him. She's playful. There's a mention of their infant son, Ben, who is safe on another world. It humanizes Luke. He's not just the legendary Grandmaster. He's a husband who had a really bad day at work.
Mara jokes about calling him Master, and Luke is just like, don't get used to it, but then the whole tone of the scene shifts.
Because Mara isn't just a Jedi Master. She's the former Emperor's hand.
She understands the shadows. She understands how power actually works, not how it's supposed to work.
And she sees the problem immediately.
She does. She understands that they cannot win this fight head on. If Luke Skywalker publicly endorses a rival candidate, someone who is pro-Jedi Rodan will spin it instantly.
He'll say, look, the Jedi Cabal is trying to install a puppet leader. They're taking over the government.
It proves Rodan's entire point. If the Jedi interfere in the election openly, they prove they're a threat to democracy.
So they're stuck. They're completely stuck. They need a friendly chief of state to survive the war, but they can't be seen helping him win.
The candidate they actually like is a man named Cal Omas. He's a former rebel, he's a moderate, he's a good guy who is sympathetic to the Jedi.
But Luke and Mara realize they have to operate in the shadows to support him.
And there's a darker realization that Luke comes to in this conversation. He realizes that the Senate and the public, they need a scapegoat.
A scapegoat for losing Coruscant.
Exactly. The voters are angry and scared. Someone has to take the blame for the biggest military disaster in galactic history. And if Rodan wins the election, the Jedi will be that scapegoat.
The narrative will be, we lost because the Jedi failed us. Or worse, the Jedi betrayed us.
So the Jedi have to win this political election to avoid being blamed for the apocalypse and purged. It's so cynical and messy.
It's survival. And it's this huge shift from the farm boy who is just looking at the twin suns. Luke is being forced to become a political operator.
He has to. Just like Han was forced to use physics instead of just his blaster. The galaxy has changed, and the Euros have to change with it or they'll go extinct.
So let's try and bring this all together. What's the big picture here? We have Han and Leia dealing with the Empire. We have Luke and Mara dealing with the Senate.
I think the connecting thread is institutional trust. Or, more accurately, the complete lack of it. The New Republic as an institution has failed to protect its citizens.
Right. The military has failed. The government has failed.
And because of those failures, the Jedi, who have always operated outside the system, are now being questioned. The Empire is a broken remnant no one trusts. All the big, reliable structures of the old galaxy are either gone or failing.
And in that vacuum, it all comes down to individuals. It comes down to Han choosing to trust Leia's vision of her son.
It comes down to Jagvel trusting his cold logic over his ingrained imperial prejudice.
And it comes down to Luke trusting Mara's sharp political instincts over his own desire to just be a noble knight.
And the other big theme is adaptability. The Yuuzhan Vong are winning because they're like a tidal wave.
Yeah.
You can't just build a wall against a tidal wave. The wall will always break. You have to learn how to swim.
Han learned how to swim in a gravity well.
And Luke is learning how to swim in the shark-infested waters of the Senate.
And through it all, there is that persistent, almost stubborn hope. The hope that Jacen is somehow still alive. The hope that the government can be rebuilt.
Hope is the fuel that keeps them going.
Yeah.
But what this book shows us so brilliantly is that hope by itself is not enough. You need hope, plus a gravity mine. You need hope, plus a political strategy.
I love that. Hope plus a gravity mine. That really should be the title of Han Solo's autobiography.
I would absolutely read that book.
So before we wrap up, I want to leave you, our listeners, with a final provocative thought to chew on.
Okay.
We talked about Jagfel's argument that the Empire is its technology and therefore it cannot ally with the anti-tech Vong.
Right. Its identity is tied to its machines.
But what about the Jedi? The Jedi rely on the Force, but the Vong, they're a blind spot in the Force. They can't be sensed. Their biotech is utterly alien to it.
That's true. Go on.
Well, if the Empire is a relic of a technological age that the Vong are making obsolete, are the Jedi also a relic? Rodan argues they don't fit into a modern constitutional democracy. The Vong prove they don't fit into this new biological universe.
Oh, are the Jedi and the Empire actually in the same boat? Two ancient powers, one mystical, one technological, both being pushed to the brink of extinction by a new, terrifying reality.
That is a chilling thought. If the rules of the galaxy are being fundamentally rewritten, maybe there's no room for Sith or Jedi anymore.
And if the Jedi refuse to integrate into the government, if they refuse to become soldiers, like Rodan wants, do they risk becoming just another armed faction in a crumbling galaxy? Just another group of warlords with lightsabers instead of starships?
It's the central question of the age, isn't it? What is the cost of sticking to your principles when the universe itself changes the rules of the game?
And can you really save a civilization that is starting to believe it doesn't want to be saved by you?
Heavy stuff. But that is why we love digging into this series. It forces you to ask these really difficult questions. Thank you for joining us on this deep dive into Destiny's Way.
It was a pleasure, as always.
Keep reaching out to the stars, everyone. You never know what or who might reach back. We'll see you next time.